There's a doctor that comes in every second Thursday from the main branch in Kottakkal. He is technically a migraine specialist, but he is really, really good. One of these biggest things in Ayurveda that a lot of older people talk about is someone holding your pulse and just feeling for your pulse, and then they seem to ask the right questions after. They seem to kind of prompt you to give them a sort of description of what your general health is like. And it's really true. Like the first time I saw this guy, luckily for me, Wednesday was my check-in date, and then that Thursday he was there. Luckily for me, he just felt my pulse. And especially if you're like me, have been living with something for a very long time, you might think that something is normal when in fact it's not. So it's definitely important to either make note of it, but like it's really nice to have someone just feel it and be like, hey, what's your flow like? Is it really low? Hey, what's your emotion like? Is it really loose? Hey, things like that. This guy was really, really good. And then luckily for me, I was able to see him the second Thursday as well. And then he was able to explain to me that I had like a lot of fluid retention between my joints, and he recommended like a different diet. But again, he wasn't very strict. You might be like, some doctors would suggest like a very strict diet, and that's all good and well, but it's very hard to sort of live a regular life when your diet is so restricted. So it's definitely a good idea to sort of keep like asking different people just to see like what is okay and what's not. This doctor, like the Thursday doctor from Kottakkal, told me that yes, you can eat like a bit of chicken and a bit of fish, like as long as it's twice a week and as long as it's grilled, not fried. So I was like, great, like that doesn't restrict me so much, like I'm able to experiment a little bit. And he was like, yes, you can have soda water as long as you have it once a week, but don't have Coke and all of that. And again, I'm like, great, if I can have soda water instead of Coke, that's perfect for me. It's like you're completely deprived of like the good things in life, or like whatever it is you like. Like personally, I don't drink, but then another thing that they say in Ayurvedic diet is don't drink. I'm sure that if there are people who who are watching this who like to drink regularly, ask your doctor and just be like, all right, how do I limit it? How do I restrict it? And then that way you're able to not feel like you're missing out, and then just like go haywire. But the Sunday doctor is not so great. I think personally, I don't blame him. I think it's because he's a junior physician and he can't call the shots. So whenever you ask him anything, he kind of just goes like, oh, I've got to check with the other doctor. Like, oh, whatever the other doctor said. Oh, yeah, sure. So you don't really feel listened to. But again, I don't blame him. I think it's just the fact that he doesn't really have the authority to make decisions, like big decisions. So yeah, so that's something else to keep in mind. So if you are checking in on a Sunday, or if you're trying to see someone and you're thinking, all right, I'll just do it tomorrow, make sure it's not a Sunday, or make sure that like you follow up with someone else. Yes, talk to him, but talk to someone else as well. Keep a copy of all your medical records, especially if you think it's important. Have a look at it, and you yourself, it's not really hard to read. Like they give you, what number what amount it is, and then a range, so you can just have a look at it. And that way, like someone like me, I have a hypothyroidism problem. Sometimes it's low, sometimes it's high, but I like to see how I'm going, because I've had a thyroid problem for like 15 years, and yet it's like up and down, up and down, up and down. So you really would think that by this point you would be a little more stable. So again, like this is something that you would notice. Like doctors are not going, like who'll see you for 10 minutes, are not going to sit down and go through a year of medical records. They're just going to look at your current results and be like, yep, within range, all good. So make sure that you are keeping up with it. Be smart about it, because at the end of the day, it's your life, and like if anything happens, you can't be like, oh, you can sue the doctor and stuff, but like it's your life that's on the line. So that's another thing. So if you're like staying here and then you go to the outpatient clinic and you tell them you're an inpatient, they tend to bump you up a little bit. I would recommend seeing them in the morning times, and morning's not early morning, like 10ish, and it's less crowded then, and they do tend to really just push you over that line, so you don't have to wait for too long. Feedback about therapists and feedback to therapists. This is another thing that I thought was very that I wish I'd done earlier. When your therapist is massaging you, let them know what your massage points are. Let them know that, hey, like it really hurts my shoulder over here, it hurts my left hip, my left leg feels off, like it's here, it's there. etc., and let them know, and don't be shy to tell them if it's too hot or not hot enough. Let them know. Like, I think that it's very important to just keep that communication going. And if you are not happy with how your therapists are going, obviously be nice to them, right? Because they're like literally spending like an hour scrubbing your naked self. So, you know, be nice to them. But like, if you're not happy about them, tell your doctor. And my mom had an issue with one of the therapists, and she told the doctor, and then the doctor just made sure that that therapist just never massaged her again. So that's another thing, but that's a bit more of an aggressive way to go about it. But you know, there is also a passive way of just telling them. But if you're not getting what you want, go ahead. If they say a doctor's going to come to your room, follow up with it. Follow up with it. If you ever go downstairs and you say, hey, I would like to see it, and you don't see the main doctor, so you ask them, hey, like, so if you ever go downstairs and you're trying to see the doctor and the main doctor is not there, and you tell them, hey, I would like to see the main doctor, if they tell you to go back up to your room, maybe wait there maximum for an hour, right? And if it's late, don't just go back to your room. Just keep persisting and be like, oh, where is he? I can just go see him myself, blah, 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 blah. Because my friend who was on a wheelchair had the same problem, where he was told like, oh, a doctor would come up to your room. And this has happened to him like twice or 3 times before. And either they forget, or I don't know, they probably forget. So that doesn't end up happening. So it's a really, really good idea. Just keep following up on it. Be persistent. There's also an assistant manager. I don't know if it's going to be the same guy when you're here, but his name's Raju. He's also really, really enthusiastic, really good guy. So if you're not happy with how things are going, talk to him as well, and he will kind of just try to get things done. But at the end of the day, you should be the most persistent. You should be the most enthusiastic. Make it happen. Yep, list the symptoms as you go. So that I've told you that already. I've just been writing it in my book. List it as you go, keep repeating yourself. So for me, like, it did help my joints for a bit, but then I was still having like real fatigue. So I had to keep telling them that, and then they added something else, or they took something else off, or like, you know, so some things were working, some things were still off. So had to keep them in the loop. So just keep letting them know what your symptoms are, and tell them what you want. So this is like golden words from my mom and dad. They always tell me when I go to a doctor, tell them what you want. And I'm like, what do you mean tell them what I want? I just want to be cured. But my mom says, no, tell them what you want. And now I think I understand it. I want to be like, hey, I've been wanting to do jiu-jitsu for a while, but I can't even go for a walk without feeling shit. I want to be able to do something high intensity. And then they either like try to focus and work on that, or they'll tell you like, hey, I don't think it's a good idea, don't do it. So that's the same thing for me. I told my doctor, hey, I want to do high intensity workouts, because I really used to enjoy doing that like 2-3 years ago. And then he was like, yeah, look, maybe for the next like year or something, just take it easy, do something light, go for a walk or a swim or do some yoga, don't do anything high intensity. And now I know, and I can manage my expectations. Or one of my friend on a wheelchair came here, and he was like, hey, I would like to improve my balance. And they actually worked on improving his balance because they knew what he wanted. So now his balance is better, but then they've also been like, yep, but still take it easy. So it's good to kind of know where you stand and kind of just be able to sort of manage those expectations, because that way you're able to actually leave satisfied with your treatment. I would recommend sticking to their diet, and they're very they definitely make sure that you stick to their diet, but you do have the opportunity. Obviously they can't stop you from bringing something in, even though they clearly say no outside food. They also if you go out, you can definitely eat something there. I would just recommend sticking to the diet. Just let the medicine just do its job and try to stay as good as possible. And then that way, even they do offer cheese toasties and stuff like that on, if you request it from them, and they have all sorts of they give you a big bowl of fruit and all of that. But try to stick to sort of the menu that you're given, that everyone is eating. And then that way you're able to sort of manage, make sure that your treatment is working to the best of its ability. All right, and don't go out too much. It is quite overwhelming. I've recorded 2 or 3 videos just sort of highlighting that. It is very overwhelming mentally and physically. I get a massive headache, I get really dizzy, and then I just feel really shit when I come back. And I last night I went out, I'll do another video about that, but then I had a really bad back pain. I had trouble falling asleep, and it's not just me. I thought I was being a wuss, but my mom's been complaining about the same thing, and the same with like 2 or 3 other people who've just left the treatment. They've also been complaining about how just being in a crowd, being in a car, but like in a traffic-free area, has been like really overwhelming for them. So keep that in mind as well. Check everything you eat with the doctor. So just kind of like go, like I personally drink lemon with hot water every morning. I also use a lot of coconut oil on my face, on my skin, on my hair. What else? Like I drink a lot of carbonated drinks. I eat a lot of chocolate. I drink green tea. So things like that. Just double check that with the doctor, because longer story short, everyone's got like different dominating elements in their bodies, and that can go out of balance. So you want to make sure that it stays in balance. So coconut oil is great for someone like me apparently, and then it can be really shit for some people. So one of my friends, like they recommended ginger, like adding ginger to his diet, and then one of my other friends, they told him to take ginger off his diet. So it's all based on like your dominant element or your element that's sort of like out of balance. So check everything you eat with the doctor, even if it's just like cafeteria food, because even though I was eating cafeteria food, I was still like feeling really shit for the first 10 days. So I would keep asking the doctor, hey, is this okay? Like I'm following this diet, but I still feel really shit. Like I'm still burping a lot, and like my tummy just feels really off, and it just feels like shock waves in my body all the time. So is that normal, etc., etc.? So like he would then tell me like, you know, like everything, like, yeah, that's okay, you'll get used to it after a while, or something like that. Regardless, it's definitely good to keep the doctor in the loop, and then that way you can again go home and have a realistic way of following this lifestyle. And last but not least, keep an open mind. So when people used to tell me to keep an open mind when I'd go to some places, I never quite got it. I was like, what do you mean? I'm open-minded, I'm really friendly, I'm quite nice. I was like, I just didn't get it when people were like, keep an open mind. But now I realize like I'm just looking at everything with brand new eyes. Like just things like some of these things are quite similar to like my home country culture, like back in Sri Lanka, but I think I've been away from it for so long that it can still like kind of catch me off guard and be a little surprising. Like I've been asked overly personal questions and I don't get offended about it over here. All right, catch you guys later. Bye.